Have you got a deck surface that you would like to color and seal? A deck surface like a concrete sidewalk, for an example, or even a backyard concrete patio. Or a deck that's been previously coated with, could be Hypalon, or it could be acrylic latex, or even fiberglass. Or a brand new deck, plywood that you want to have it sealed and also stop the water from going through the deck plywood joints. Well, let me show you a product that will do all three of those. And here's the product. It's called Deckote. And you know, it's so easy to install. All you need is a paintbrush and a roller, because it's a system that comes in cans. Now, when you use plywood, then you require a tape and a pair of scissors to cut the tape. Now, this goes over top of the seams, which I'll show you, because we're going to get at the plywood deck right now. Now, you can see this deck here has got plywood already applied, and we've got our flashing drip strips all around the perimeter. First of all, it's very important to make sure that the plywood is clean. No sawdust, no chips, no dirt. Now I'm ready for the primer, because the primer is used adhesive to put on the seams as well as the flashing. It's acrylic latex, all water-based, very little odor. So now that we've got the primer ready, we'll take our brush, take the primer, and prime it along the flashing. Now you'll notice the flashing here has been nipped. The reason for that, because if it wasn't for the nipping, there'd be oil canning and there would be ripples. And we can't have any ripples because we want that nice and tight with the tape. Now what the tape does, it bridges that gap, the seam between the metal and the plywood. Once you put the tape over the crack, now put another coat of primer over top, sealing it in. Okay, now we're ready for the filler. Now the filler is used anywhere there is a screw or a nail, or if there's some real imperfections in the surface of the plywood, and that'll fill that. Always use about an 8-inch knife or spackling knife. The reason why you want an 8-inch, because you want to have a good span over the surface. Now you can see that filling in these areas here. Same process. Over top of the clean surface of concrete, you apply a coat of primer. Always make sure you clean first. It's very, very important to make sure that there's no moss or mildew or algae, if you want to call it algae, on the surface. Now this deck has been resurfaced before with fiberglass, but in order to change the color, we want to prime it first, and then we'll proceed to put the top coat, the color coat, and certainly blend in with the home. Now you can see the primer is already dry. In fact, the manufacturer doesn't even recommend using a primer on top of concrete, but I like it. I think it just gives a better binding to the concrete. Now for the top color coat, you puddle it on. The idea is you want to put some coating on. That way when you puddle it, then you just spread it out with the roller. Puddling it out, that way it'll even fill the pores of the concrete, giving it a nice dress coat. Now going over top of the previously fiberglass deck, primer first and then the top coat, which I'm putting on now. The only time you use the base coat, that's the intermediate coat, is on the new plywood deck. Now there's two different base coats. There's the normal, which I used here, and you can see it here on the sample board. And then there's the non-slip, which you can see here, and it's quite rough. Now you'd use the non-slip in an area if it was exposed to the weather, possibly a dock or a swimming wharf, that sort of thing. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my top coat and I'm going to do the cutting in all around my flashings, and then we'll proceed with the puddling out and spreading it around with the roller. And here's the finished product here on top of the new plywood. A tip here, always apply your base coat and your top coat at 100 square feet per gallon. Here we are back on the fiberglass recoated deck. The homeowners put up the new pro-built do-it-yourself railing. Doesn't it add a new dimension to the house? Well, the concrete's finished and it's all cured, and it looks great, doesn't it? It's going to be a lot easier to keep clean as well. Now, wasn't that easy? Think of it. You could do all three of those projects in one weekend. And you know, it's just as simple as 1, 2, 3.